The red and blue lights cut through the darkness. Mary's heart raced as the police cruiser pulled into her driveway. The security pole she had installed just weeks ago, now lying broken on the ground. She knew this wasn't a random accident. The homeowners association had made their move, and the consequences were about to unfold in the most unexpected way. Mary clutched her phone, fingers trembling as she watched the officers approach her front door. This was the last thing she needed after the hell she'd been through with the HOA over the past month. It had started with a simple request to install a security pole in her front yard, but the battle had quickly escalated into an all-out war. "Ma'am, we received an alert from your security system indicating the pole had been tampered with," the first officer said sternly. "Can you tell us what happened?" Mary took a deep breath, trying to keep her composure. "I have no idea. I just got home and found it like this. I suspect the HOA had something to do with it. They've been giving me trouble ever since I put up that pole." The officers exchanged a concerned glance. "The HOA? What kind of issues have you been having with them?" Mary proceeded to explain the lengthy dispute, her voice laced with frustration. "They claim the pole is an unapproved structure that violates community guidelines. I've been fighting them tooth and nail, but they refuse to back down. I even have the permits to prove it's completely legal." The second officer frowned. "So you believe the HOA took matters into their own hands and destroyed your property?" "Yes, that's exactly what I think happened," Mary exclaimed. "They've been harassing me for weeks, threatening fines and even legal action. I'm at my wit's end." The officers nodded thoughtfully. "We'll need to investigate this further. In the meantime, we suggest you document everything and contact your homeowner's insurance. This could be considered vandalism and destruction of private property." Mary's shoulders slumped with relief. "Thank you, officers. I'm just glad the security system alerted the authorities right away. At least now, there's a chance we can get to the bottom of this." As the police prepared to leave, Mary couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, justice would finally be served against the relentless HOA. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of a twisted saga that would leave her life turned upside down. The next morning, Mary paced anxiously around her living room, replaying the events of the previous night. She couldn't believe the HOA had stooped so low as to destroy her property. As if the constant harassment and threats weren't enough, now they had involved the police. Just then, the doorbell rang. Mary peered through the peephole and was surprised to see two well-dressed individuals standing on her doorstep. She took a deep breath and opened the door. "Good morning, Mrs. Johnson. I'm Samantha, the president of the HOA, and this is our attorney, Mr. Grayson. May we come in?" Samantha wore a tight-lipped smile that didn't reach her eyes. Mary hesitated for a moment, then reluctantly stepped aside. "What do you want?" "We're here to discuss the incident with your security pole," Mr. Grayson said, his tone professorial. "The HOA board has reviewed the situation, and we believe there has been a misunderstanding." Mary crossed her arms, eyeing them suspiciously. "A misunderstanding? Your goons came and knocked down my pole in the middle of the night. How is that a misunderstanding?" Samantha raised a hand placatingly. Now, let's not jump to conclusions. We simply want to understand what happened and see if we can resolve this amicably." "Amicably?" Mary scoffed. "You've been anything but amicable since I put up that pole. I have the permits to prove it's completely legal, and yet you've been harassing me for weeks. Now you've gone and destroyed my property. How is that supposed to be resolved amicably?" Mr. Grayson cleared his throat. "Mrs. Johnson, we understand your frustration, but we're here to find a solution. Perhaps we could discuss reinstalling the pole in a more suitable location that complies with community guidelines." Mary narrowed her eyes. "Suitable location? You mean somewhere hidden away where no one can see it? Fat chance. That pole is staying right where it is, and you're going to pay for the damages." Samantha frowned. "I'm afraid we can't agree to that. The pole violates our community standards, and we have a responsibility to uphold those standards for the benefit of all residents. Responsibility. Mary spat. Your responsibility is to make my life a living hell, isn't it? Well, I'm not backing down. You're going to fix this, or I'll take you to court. The two HOA representatives exchanged a loaded glance. Very well, Mrs. Johnson. If that's your decision, then we have no choice but to proceed with formal legal action. Samantha turned and headed for the door, Mr. Grayson in tow. As the door slammed shut, Mary felt a surge of adrenaline. She was done playing by their rules. This war had just escalated to a whole new level. The following week, Mary found a thick envelope waiting for her on the doorstep. She tore it open to find a stack of legal documents, a formal complaint from the HOA, citing her security pole as an unauthorized structure and demanding its immediate removal. Mary's hands trembled with rage as she scanned the papers. She had half a mind to march down to the HOA office and give them a piece of her mind. But she knew that would only play into their hands. This was a game of chess, and she needed to stay one step ahead. Grabbing her phone, she quickly dialed her lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Samantha, who had helped her navigate the initial permit process. Samantha, it's Mary. The HOA just served me with a formal complaint about the security pole. They're demanding I take it down. There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. I see. And I take it they didn't offer to reimburse you for the damages from when they destroyed it. Of course not, Mary exclaimed. These people are ruthless. They came to my house the other day, acting all nice and reasonable, but I saw right through their act. They're not going to stop until they get their way. Samantha let out a measured sigh. All right, Mary, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to file a countersuit for property damage and harassment. We'll hit them where it hurts, in their pocketbooks. Mary felt a surge of relief. Yes, do it. I'm not going to let them bully me anymore. This has gone on long enough. I'll get the paperwork started right away, Samantha assured her. In the meantime, I'd suggest you start documenting everything. Any further harassment, threats, or attempts at intimidation. We need to build an airtight case. You got it, Mary said, her resolve hardening. I'm ready for war. As she hung up the phone, Mary couldn't help but feel a twinge of unease. The HOA was clearly not going to back down, and she knew this was only the beginning of a long and arduous battle. But she was determined to fight tooth and nail to protect her home and her rights. This wasn't just about a security pole anymore. It was about standing up to a system that seemed hell-bent on crushing the little guy. With a deep breath, Mary steeled herself for the fight of her life. The HOA had no idea what they were up against. Over the next few weeks, Mary's life became consumed by the legal battle with the HOA. She spent countless hours gathering evidence, documenting every interaction, and working closely with her attorney, Samantha, to build their case. The HOA, on the other hand, seemed relentless in their pursuit. Mary's mailbox was flooded with one threatening letter after another, each one more intimidating than the last. They even sent a representative to her door, demanding she remove the security pole immediately or face steep fines. This is harassment, pure and simple. Mary fumed to Samantha during one of their strategy sessions. They're trying to bully me into submission. Samantha nodded grimly. I know, Mary, but we can't let them get to us. We've got a solid case, and we're going to fight this thing all the way to the end. As the court date approached, the tension in Mary's neighborhood palpably increased. Neighbors who had once been friendly now eyed her with suspicion, whispering behind her back. It was as if the HOA had turned the entire community against her. One particularly tense encounter occurred when Mary was out getting her mail. A group of residents, led by Samantha, the HOA president, confronted her on the sidewalk. Mary, this has gone on long enough, Samantha said, her voice dripping with condescension. Why don't you just do the right thing and take down that eyesore of a pole? It's an embarrassment to the entire community. Mary felt her blood boil. The right thing. You mean cave to your bullying and give up my rights? Not a chance in hell. Rights? Samantha scoffed. This isn't about your rights, Mary. It's about maintaining the aesthetic and property values of our neighborhood. Don't you care about your fellow residents? Of course I do. Mary shot back. But I also care about my own safety and the security of my home. That pole is perfectly legal, and I'm not taking it down just because you and your precious HOA don't like it. The gathered neighbors murmured in disapproval, casting judgmental glances in Mary's direction. Samantha shook her head with a sigh. Well, I tried to be reasonable. But if you insist on this senseless battle, then so be it. I hope you're prepared to face the consequences. As Samantha and the others turned and walked away, Mary felt a chill run down her spine. She knew the HOA was not going to back down, and the impending court case was going to be a fight for her very way of life. The day of the court hearing dawned, and Mary felt her stomach churn with nerves. She had spent countless hours preparing with Samantha, her hardened legal warrior, but the weight of the situation was still heavy on her shoulders. As they entered the courtroom, Mary couldn't help but feel a twinge of intimidation. The HOA had brought an entire team of lawyers, all meticulously dressed and exuding an air of confidence. In contrast, Mary and Samantha looked almost outmatched. But Samantha flashed Mary a reassuring smile. Don't worry, we've got this. The facts are on our side, and we're going to make them regret ever messing with you. The judge entered and called the case to order. Samantha rose, her voice clear and commanding as she laid out their argument. She meticulously detailed the timeline of events, highlighting the HOA's harassment and the illegal destruction of Mary's property. The HOA's lead attorney, a slick-looking man named Mr. Grayson, countered with a well-rehearsed rebuttal. Your Honor, the security pole in question is clearly an unapproved structure that violates our community guidelines. Mrs. Johnson was fully aware of this, yet she willfully disregarded our requests to remove it. Samantha was quick to interject. That's simply not true, Your Honor. Mrs. Johnson obtained all the necessary permits and approvals before installing the pole. The HOA's actions were unlawful and unjustified. The back and forth continued, with both sides presenting their evidence and arguments. Mary watched with bated breath, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew this was a pivotal moment, not just for her own safety and property, but for the principle of standing up to an overbearing and unjust system. Finally, the judge raised a hand, silencing the room. I've heard the arguments from both sides, and I must say, this is a rather unusual case. While I understand the HOA's desire to maintain community standards, the destruction of private property is a serious matter. Mary felt a spark of hope ignite within her. Samantha's confident expression only further fueled her optimism. The judge continued, I'm going to take some time to carefully review the evidence and reach a decision. In the meantime, I'm issuing a temporary restraining order against the HOA, prohibiting any further action against Mrs. Johnson's security pole. As the gavel came down, Mary released a shaky breath, her eyes brimming with tears of relief. Samantha leaned over and gave her hand a gentle squeeze. We're not out of the woods yet, but this is a good start. Now, let's go get ready for the next round. Mary nodded, her determination renewed. She was prepared to fight this battle to the bitter end, no matter the cost. In the days following the initial court hearing, the tension in Mary's neighborhood only continued to escalate. The HOA had made good on their promise to fight this battle to the bitter end, and they were pulling out all the stops. Flyers began appearing on doorsteps throughout the community, urging residents to rally against Mary's selfish and disruptive actions. Neighbors who had once been friendly now avoided her gaze or muttered under their breath as she passed by. Mary couldn't help but feel increasingly isolated, as if the very community she had once loved had turned against her. But she refused to back down. With Samantha by her side, She remained steadfast in her determination to protect her rights and her home. One afternoon, as Mary was tending to her garden, a familiar black SUV pulled into her driveway. Samantha stepped out, her expression grave. "Mary, we've got a problem. The HOA has filed a motion to have the restraining order lifted. They're pulling out all the stops to get that security pole taken down." Mary's heart sank. "What? I thought we had the upper hand after the last hearing." Samantha shook her head. "Apparently not. They're claiming the pole is a public safety hazard and are demanding an emergency hearing. We've got to be in court first thing tomorrow morning." Mary felt a wave of frustration and exhaustion wash over her. "This is never ending, Samantha. When is it going to stop?" "I know, Mary, I know." Samantha placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "But we can't give up now. We've come too far. Tomorrow, we're going to hit them with everything we've got." As Samantha left, Mary stared out at the security pole, now a symbol of her defiance against the relentless HOA. She couldn't help but wonder how much more she could endure before this battle truly broke her. But deep down, she knew she couldn't back down. This was about more than just a security pole. It was about standing up for her rights, her safety, and her very way of life. With a renewed sense of determination, she steeled herself for the fight of her life. Tomorrow, she would face the HOA again, and this time, she was more resolved than ever to emerge victorious. The following morning, Mary and Samantha sat in the courtroom, their eyes locked on the opposing counsel as the judge took the bench. The air was thick with tension, and Mary could feel her heart pounding in her chest. Samantha leaned in, giving Mary's hand a reassuring squeeze. "Don't worry, we've got this. I'm going to lay out the facts, and there's no way they can justify their actions." Mary nodded, trying to steady her nerves. She knew Samantha was a brilliant and tenacious lawyer, but the HOA was relentless, and they had deep pockets to fund their legal onslaught. As the hearing began, Mr. Grayson, the HOA's lead attorney, wasted no time in making his case. "Your Honor, the security pole installed by Mrs. Johnson poses a clear and present danger to the community. It's an eyesore that detracts from the carefully curated aesthetic of our neighborhood, and it's a potential hazard to pedestrians and drivers alike." Samantha quickly rose to her feet. "That's simply not true, Your Honor. Mrs. Johnson has followed all the proper procedures and obtained the necessary permits to install this security pole. It is a fully legal and legitimate structure, and the HOA's claim of it being a safety hazard is nothing more than a baseless excuse to have it removed." The judge listened intently, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Mr. Grayson, can you provide any concrete evidence to support your claims of this pole being a safety hazard?" Mr. Grayson hesitated for a moment, then cleared his throat. "Well, Your Honor, we have concerns that the pole could be a distraction to drivers, leading to potential accidents. And there's also the risk of it being used as a climbing structure by local children, which could result in injuries." Samantha scoffed audibly. "Those are nothing more than hypothetical scenarios, Your Honor. Mrs. Johnson has taken every precaution to ensure the pole is securely installed and poses no threat to the community. The HOA is grasping at straws here." The judge nodded thoughtfully, then turned his attention to Mary. "Mrs. Johnson, do you have anything you'd like to add?" Mary took a deep breath, her voice steady and resolute. "Your Honor, all I want is to feel safe in my own home. This security pole is not only legal, but it's also a necessary measure to protect myself and my family. The HOA has been harassing me for months, and now they're trying to take away my right to make that decision for myself." The judge held up a hand, silencing the room. "I've heard the arguments from both sides, and I must say, this is a complex issue. On one hand, I understand the HOA's desire to maintain a cohesive community aesthetic. But on the other, I cannot ignore the fact that Mrs. Johnson has followed all the proper protocols and has a legitimate right to ensure the safety of her property." Mary held her breath, her palms sweating with anticipation. Therefore, the judge continued, I am denying the HOA's motion to lift the restraining order. The security pole can remain in place, and I strongly urge both parties to work towards a reasonable compromise. As the gavel came down, a wave of relief washed over Mary. She had won this round, but she knew the battle with the HOA was far from over. In the weeks following the court victory, Mary found herself in uncharted territory. The HOA, despite their previous threats and posturing, had surprisingly agreed to a compromise. They would allow the security pole to remain, but with certain conditions. They want me to plant some shrubs around the base to soften the visual impact, Mary told Samantha, her brow furrowed in frustration. And they're also demanding that I install additional lighting to make it less of an eyesore at night. Samantha nodded, a faint smile playing on her lips. Well, considering the alternative was having the pole removed entirely, I'd say that's a pretty good deal. Mary sighed, running a hand through her hair. I suppose you're right. I just can't believe I have to jump through all these hoops just to feel safe in my own home. I know it's not ideal, Samantha said, placing a reassuring hand on Mary's shoulder. But sometimes in life, we have to pick our battles. The important thing is that you get to keep the pole, and the HOA has been put in their place. Mary couldn't help but feel a sense of pride at that. The months-long battle had been grueling, both emotionally and financially, but in the end, she had emerged victorious. The HOA's relentless efforts to bully her had been thwarted, and she had proven that she wouldn't back down in the face of their intimidation tactics. As Mary tended to the new shrubs surrounding the security pole, she couldn't help but smile. The pole, once a source of tension and conflict, had now become a symbol of her resilience and her refusal to be cowed by the HOA's demands. Well, look at that, a voice called out from behind her. Mary turned to see her neighbor, Mrs. Wilson, approaching with a warm smile. The new landscaping looks lovely. I have to say, I'm proud of you for standing up to those HOA bullies. Mary felt a surge of gratitude. Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. It's been a long and difficult battle, but I'm glad to have the support of my neighbors. Mrs. Wilson chuckled. Oh, believe me, you've got more support than you know. A lot of us have been rooting for you all along. Those HOA folks may have the power, but you've got the heart of this community on your side. As Mary watched Mrs. Wilson stroll back to her own home, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The road ahead might still be uncertain, but she knew that she had the strength and the determination to face whatever challenges the HOA might throw her way. This security pole, once a source of division, had now become a symbol of her triumph, a testament to the power of standing up for what's right, no matter the cost.